me welcome Dr. Simon Alubbe to take us through today's presentation and talk. Dr. Alubbe, over to you. Just 1 minute so that we are able to unmute you here. Dr. Alubbe, I'll ask you to unmute. So ladies and gentlemen, please do welcome Dr. Simon Alubbe, and he takes us through his presentation and his talk that will really motivate us to implement the skills we have learned over the last 3 days, and we take them to the world. Dr. Alubbe, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Thank you for that very generous introduction. I'm really appreciative, and I'm very humbled to have been invited to share with colleagues in this forum. I really am impressed by the work that animal people are doing. I'm in the communication space, and I'll be sharing that shortly. But even me, I'm mesmerized by the level of communications practice that Lucy has put up. I've learned a lot, not just for my vet career, but also what I'll be putting into practice in my current work. So thanks, Lucy. Secondly, I would just like to say sorry to everyone. I apologize I wasn't able to come on Thursday. Basically something pressing cropped up at work. But hopefully we'll cover quite a bit together today. So I would like to say something about myself, just to get us going, because people always want to know who is this talking to us. And although they don't say it, but they are thinking, why should we listen to this guy? So I'll be just sharing a little bit about my journey. I graduated from Kabete in 1994 as a vet doctor. I then went on into pharmaceutical marketing, where I worked for about 7 years. And at about that time in 02, I decided to make a fairly big move. I went to the School of Journalism, University of Nairobi, and studied journalism. At that time, it was called Postgraduate Diploma in Mass Communications. After that, I went into publishing, and I've spent a lot of time in publishing. Actually, the last 17 years I've spent in publishing, working at Oxford University Press, Longman, Kenya, East African educational publishers. And I've learned a lot. It's been one of the really best times of my life, making books. And I still make books, and hopefully at some point in future, we'll talk about making books, because that's another area that vets we need to learn a lot about. So after about 17 years in publishing, I've moved into communications management. I currently work at the KCB Foundation as a communications manager. It's a great job, a lot of challenges every day, and hopefully we'll get a bit of time to share about that. So all in all, I really enjoy the communications space, and I'll be sharing some of the joys of working in that space. I'm not asking you to do what I did, jump over from vet into communications, but I'll be asking you to put on the communications hat a lot of times in your own practice, because communications matters a lot. So without further ado, I would just like to get into the presentation I have. And the first thing I would just like to share is we use the word communication a lot. And what does that word really mean? I have learned in my work and in my life that it's the simple things that really matter. Whenever you want to succeed in life, you go back to the fundamentals, the ABCs. Those are the foundations of success. So we talk about communication. Communication, what does it really mean? Communication means sharing. When you think about it, you think about sharing, you think about engagement, you think about creating shared meaning, you think about reaching another person or another group of people. And that is one of the areas that I would say that as vets, we don't do well enough. We are very good in the science. When Lucy talked to me about this topic, writing for non-scientists, I just said, what an appropriate topic. And though I won't be going deep into that, Lucy will share that presentation with you. I just want to say that vets, we need to pull up our socks in that space of sharing our science, communicating our science, reaching the audience that we are currently calling non-scientists, though actually what we mean is non-animal scientists, because there are other scientists out there, like physicists and biologists and so on, who will not understand us if we do not make a deliberate effort to reach them in a way that they understand. So I'm going to be sharing something about that in this talk, and I hope that you'll be inspired. Please feel free to jot down some of your questions, which we will focus on at the end of my talk. So one of the things that I would really like to share with you, team, are a few theories. You are scientists and you love theories. There's no scientist who doesn't love theories. So I'll share with you some 3 or 4 communication theories and explain to you how they affect our work as animal people and how we can utilize them to make a difference. So the first theory is the agenda setting theory. And basically what this theory says, all these theories are theories about the mass media and how the mass media handles communication. So what is the agenda setting theory? The agenda setting theory describes the ability of the news media to influence the importance placed upon various topics in the society. So someone said, if it's not in the Daily Nation, it did not happen. In fact, sometimes when you want to find out if something happened, you ask yourself, was it on KTN News? Was it on Citizen News? Was it in The Nation? So if you hold a big function or you hear there was a big function held and it was not covered in any newspaper or on any TV channel, then people start wondering whether it really happened. So the mass media have a lot of power in our day and age. And I attended Alex Chamwada's talk yesterday, a great inspiration he is. And he brought this out quite clearly, that the mass media have great power in setting the agenda for the society. So question, if the mass media are setting agenda for the society, how then can the livestock sector or the animal industry leverage on that to set agenda? Because if we, the professionals, are not going to set the agenda through the media, someone else will. Nature abhors vacuum. So if the vet doctors, the animal professionals are not going to step into that space and set the agenda, Politicians are going to set the agenda. Accountants are going to set the agenda. And other professionals are going to step into that space and set the agenda. And I have been in so many meetings with vets where they are so disappointed that sometimes their voice is not heard or their voice is not taken seriously on the livestock sector. But I would just like to ask you vets, I would just like to ask you animal professionals, have you made that leap of faith that is required and set out to set the agenda in the media? And the media is not doing anyone any favors. They are not going to just open their door to you. There's work to be done. And I know the last 4 sessions that we've had, that work has been described for us. So it's about earning that right to be heard, because the media are business. They want to make money, but in the process, they set the agenda. And so vets and paravets and everyone listening to me, the task is out there. We need to get out there and set the agenda. It's not a question of if, because if you don't set the agenda, someone else will. So that's the first theory that I would really like you to keep in mind. The second theory, I heard Alex talk about this theory yesterday. It's called the gatekeeping theory. And the gatekeeping theory says, again, it's a media theory. The gatekeeping theory says that the gatekeeper decides what information moves past them through the information gate to the group of individuals beyond, read the audience. So myself as a vet, there's something I want to tell the farmer, but I can only reach one farmer at a time. But the nation can, the nation has a circulation, say, on a bad day of 100,000 copies a day, but on a good day could hit 150,000 copies a day. And remember, circulation does not equal readership. Normally, to get readership, you need to multiply circulation by about 4, because it's theorized that when I buy my Daily Nation, it's not going to be read by me alone. It's going to be read by about 3 to 4 people. In some places, you can even find a nation being read by 10 people. So if they are selling 150,000 copies, they are being read by 600,000 people easily. The Daily Nation every day is read by 1 million people every day. So there's a gatekeeper at the Daily Nation, and he's called the editor. And he is going to decide whether my information is going to get through the gate to the farmer. So as a vet, as a paravet, as an animal sector professional, what do I need to do to get through that gate? What pass do I need? What visa do I need? And this is the work that Lucy has embarked on. And I shared with Lucy yesterday, and I told her, Lucy, this is not a 4-day job. This job you have taken is for the long haul, because it's not easy to just learn how to get through these gates, because once you get through once, it's not enough. You need to get through that gate habitually. It needs to become a habit for veterinarians, for paravets, for animal sector professionals to be published, that in a week, in our work as communication professionals, we do what is called media monitoring. And we are always checking, has our company been covered in the Nation today? Has the company been covered in the Standard this week? Have we been covered? And we are monitoring all this media. And the vet sector, we need to be monitoring on a weekly basis. How many times was something relating to animals, to livestock covered? Because only when you start monitoring will you see the problem. When you go a month and you are not seeing anything covered about livestock, that's a crisis. Basically, in our business, you could be fired if you go a month and there's nothing being covered about you. And sometimes vets, we might not be fired, but our agenda just doesn't get to the table. So gatekeeping theory, very important. There's another theory that I would like to share, and it's called the framing theory. I won't spend so much time on that. It's a bit related to the gatekeeping theory. But the framing theory, this is how it applies. So you call a journalist. I heard someone talk about this in Alex's presentation yesterday, where they say a journalist interviewed them or interviews them, but what the journalist presents as the final product is very different from what was covered during the interview. Now, the framing theory is at work at that time. When you are talking to the journalist, you are sharing information with them, but remember, they have the right to frame that information in a way that suits their media outlet and in a way that suits their agenda. So as people who want to be savvy in communicating out there, we've got to be smart in learning how to frame our story so that even if someone is going to adjust the frame a little bit, it's not going to change the message. Our message is still going to go through. So I want to stop boring you with theories by just sharing one last one. And the last one is called, and my audience, please, this one, write it in red on your notebook and circle it severally, because it's one of those really important theories I want you never to forget. And it's called spiral of silence theory. What does spiral of silence theory say? It describes the tendency of people to keep quiet when they feel their views are not in tandem or similar to the views of the majority. Spiral of silence. You know something is going wrong in the country, in the livestock sector. As a profession, 3,000, 4,000 people, 10,000 people, but there's a spiral of silence. No one is talking. So this is also a theory that has been observed, and I want you to be aware of it, that when you are not talking, you have entered some sort of conspiracy with each other, not to talk, not to share, not to set the agenda. And when you get into that spiral of silence, please remember what I said at the beginning. It doesn't mean that no one will talk about livestock. The quacks will be talking about livestock. The people who know so little will be talking about it. The MPs will be talking about it. But the only problem is they are not trained. They don't have the tools. They do not have the know-how, the experience, the license, everything that is needed to do a professional job. We have it, but what happens if we are in the spiral of silence? So these are the theories, and I would just like to emphasize that the time has come, fellow livestock professionals, that we must get out there and write. We must get out there and write. Something happened to Africa when the explorers came, when the colonialists came and they were dividing up Africa. They started giving our lakes their names. So you found, they found our lakes there, they call Lake Victoria, and they gave our mountains their names. And worse, they began rewriting our history. Today, the history you read in class, or the history you read in school, much of that history was not written by ourselves. It was written by the colonialists. Why? Basically, it's because our African philosophers, our chiefs, our kings, and our influencers, whatever you want to call them, they did not write. They used to share knowledge and information through what we call the oral literature method. So stories were passed from generation to generation. But it's known that the oral route is the most unreliable route in terms of long-term preservation of knowledge. What we share in our conferences, what we are taught in class, anything you are taught orally, if it's not captured in written form, will easily pass away. And that is why when the Europeans came, they said the African is uncivilized. The African did not have this, and he did not have this. And we became basically a people without history, not because we lacked history, but because we lacked writers. We lacked the writing knowledge, the writing facility. And dear people, if we are going to fall into the same era as our ancestors from a professional point of view and not write, someone is going to come into this space 100 years from now and say, Kenya had no vets. Kenya had no veterinary thought. Kenya had no thinkers in the veterinary space. These problems that these people are facing, we are the ones who have come here to frame them, to discuss them, and to solve them. So the challenge for everyone here is that it is not enough to attend these 4 sessions and get your CPD points and say, wow, that was amazing. We vets, we like novelty. We like new things. And we like the technology. This what Lucy and her team have put up is mesmerizing. It's amazing. And this has been a week that our profession, I can say, has been on a high as we have had these concepts. Great, but we cannot stop there. We must now wake up and go to the next step, pick that pen and get writing. Those thoughts that are in your head, those things that are bothering you as you meet farmers, it's bothering you how they are so self-medicating their animals. It's bothering you how they are not managing biosecurity well. It's bothering you how the quacks are spreading all over. It's bothering you how people are silent about antimicrobial resistance. So there are all these disasters looming around you, and it's bothering you. And it is time that you do something about that by picking your pen and beginning to write about it. So, how do you get writing? I just want to spend about 5 minutes to share about that because it's always easy to tell people write, but writing has its own challenges. And the challenges are not big, but they make people not write. I know a lot of resourceful people with a lot of information in their system, on their hard disks, in the library and so on. But that information dies with them. In fact, I don't know if it was, there was someone who said that cemeteries in Africa are some of the places with the highest intellectual capital because all these professors die with their knowledge. And so the cemetery is really rich. So we don't want to create rich cemeteries. We want to leave legacies behind us, legacies of information, legacies of articles. And I'm going to tell you something about writing that I hope you'll remember. It's very basic, but it's good to remind you about it. That writing is the best form of communication that lasts over time. A book that was written, let's say, 1,000 years ago, we can still access it. And we do have a lot of books available. We have what Plato said. You can go to Google right now and just Google Plato's writings, and you're going to get them. And these are guys who lived thousands of years ago. Go and Google Aristotle. Go and Google Confucius. These guys wrote. And because they wrote, we can access what they wrote. So please, 100 years from today, when a Kenyan scientist, a Kenyan vet, wants to Google what people did in 2020 to deal with rabies, please let them find enough material. Let them find enough material written by this generation about rabies. Let them find material on what this generation did about antimicrobial resistance. Let them find material on the contributions that this generation made in coming up with the act that has really revolutionized the sector. So writing, it's a permanent record. Number two, writing is the easiest way for information to make its way around the world. I know we love the electronic technology now, and through electronic technology, we are sharing right now, but it has its own limitations because of the issue of accessibility of the technology, because you need the gadget, you need to know how to access where that information is, and that knowledge is not easily available for everyone. Writing beats that, and you don't need a charger to charge an article to read it, and so on. So that accessibility of writing is still something that makes sure that although the digital world is here with us, writing is still holding its own place, and so you should invest in it. But finally, I just want to say that the foundation of all communication begins with the written word. Everything you are reading on websites, on gadgets, and that comes as news, it's first of all written. So that writing is the father and mother of all other kinds of communication. Even speeches, they are first written. So it's worth your while to learn how to write. So some advice on how to learn how to write and go forward. So the best advice that I've heard about writing came from a gentleman you will recognize, a great British politician. He was called Sir Winston Churchill. He was a great writer, and he was very busy, so no one should ever say that I'm too busy to write. If you hear someone saying that I'm too busy to write, basically that person does not appreciate the importance of his writing. That's all. It's not that there's anyone too busy to write, because Winston Churchill is the British Prime Minister who led Britain through the Second World War. He was very busy dealing with war plans and such, but he still got time to write so many books. And one of the things he said is this, that the best formula I know of how to write is to apply your backside to a seat and not leave until you have written, until you have penned something. A simple advice, but very tough. So vets, you need to get yourself onto a seat, get a pen, and get writing. So that's the first way to write. It's by writing. But what about actual practical tips? So the first thing about writing that I was taught is start from the known and go towards the unknown, or begin with something easy. Start with something easy and then build into something more complicated. There is no way you will get published in the Daily Nation with your first article unless you are really, I don't know, you really have to be lucky and you really have to be good. Most of us, and that happens, I know some people are that blessed and you get published in the Daily Nation or in the Standard with your first article. And if you are that kind of person, good for you. But for the majority of us, we have to build the skill. So you start with a small project. Start with a small project. Learn how to excel at that small project. Then your muscle will build. Then you go on to the next project and so on. And then 1 year down the road, you will find that you are a columnist. Alex was saying yesterday that he's willing to help us to be columnists in this media. But I can tell you it's not easy to be a columnist. It requires you to earn the right and have the skill to communicate through that channel before you can become a columnist. So what are some of the easy things or the low-hanging fruit that as vets, as livestock people, we can begin to pluck and then grow? I have 3 of them, and I want to just go through them. The first one is what we call the letter to the editor. Letter to the editor, some people call them readers' letters. The second one is what I'm going to call filler. Filler is written F-I-L-L-E-R-S. I'll be explaining shortly what a filler is. And then the third one, sorry for that interruption. The third one is what I call the review. Some people call them book, it could be book reviews, and it could be a conference review, it could be a website review, and so on. So let's go through those 3 simple ways to begin writing. I'll add a 4th, which is an obvious one, called a blog. But I'll tell you why blog was not featuring in my first list. Many great writers like Ernest Hemingway and others honed their craft through beginning by writing the letter to the editor. It's really simple to do or standard every day. They carry about 7 to 8 letters to the editor. And it's just basic people, simple people airing their opinions about things that affect them. Why don't we have more of our professionals in the animal sector writing these letters? Have you, so it bothers you that there is antimicrobial resistance. Have you ever sent a letter to the editor at the Daily Nation and just shared through the editor that letter to the editor is usually not a very long piece of writing. In fact, if you go beyond 150 words, you're probably overwritten. It's too long. It's basically a capsule of information, and it's something that you can actually, even during this seminar, you can actually sit down and write a letter to the editor because this information is in you and it's in us. But are we doing it? So start there. Start by writing letters to the editor. I'll tell you the advantages of getting published when you write a letter to the editor. Number 1, editors love them. There is no, even in Animal Focus, which I edit, there is a time we started looking for letters to the editor, and can you believe it? We were not getting these simple things, just people saying, oh, we don't, I mean, would even appreciate people say, oh, we don't like the magazine, it's boring. Editors love that. Why? Because it's feedback. Editors love those letters because it's feedback. That's what the audience is thinking. Some people say, that's what's cutting. That's what's eating people, quote unquote. So if you want to know what's eating Kenyans, don't look at the headline, Ruto in Eldoret with a big crowd. That one is someone who wants to set the agenda. That one will not tell you what's eating people. open, it's normally around page 5 or page 6, and hear what ordinary Kenyans are saying in the letters to the editor. If you read letters to the editor for a month, I'm telling you, you'll have done an opinion poll of what's affecting Kenyans. And that's why editors take letters to the editor very seriously. And that's why I would say, dear professionals, let our voice be heard in the letters to the editor. And I want to say here that please do not just focus on Daily Nation and Standard and the Star and the People. I want some of us to focus on Taifa Leo. One of the easiest places to get published in Kenya is in Taifa Leo. Why? Because there aren't enough people who can write in Kiswahili. So if you can make the effort to write in Kiswahili, or you write in English and then make a friend with that teacher in your that Kiswahili teacher in a primary school somewhere to translate for you, na umnunulie chai shilingi 50, unanunua chai, unamwambia mwalimu, I've written this article, I want it translated into Kiswahili. You will get published faster in the Taifa Leo than in the Daily Nation. And Taifa Leo reaches the grassroots. It's going to touch people whom you do not believe. People, influencers. For example, I know a lot of chiefs uko chini wanasoma Taifa Leo. If nothing else, just to know what's really cutting at that level of society. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of letters to editor. Editors love them. They give feedback. Number 2, editors hate, and I'm using the word hate in quotes. They hate people who want to make a quick buck, just like we vets do. You know, sometimes you'll go into a meeting and we start talking about quacks and we get emotional, and you can almost feel that if a quack was in this place, they would be torn into little pieces, because we don't like people who are out to make a quick buck without learning to operate in our space. So why would you expect the professionals in the media and in the newspapers to feel any different? They don't want to deal with quacks. They don't want to deal with this person who just sat down and thought they are inspired and wrote this great story and then 1,000 words with pictures. They won't even look at the headline. They'll pick that thing and throw it in the dustbin without even reading it. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated with some of these editors. But you know, you just need to put yourself in their shoes. So why am I saying that letters to the editor will help you? They will introduce your name to the editors, because editors will start thinking, Simon Peter Alubbe, we covered a letter by Simon Peter Alubbe on Monday, and on Friday he's written again. Wow, this guy has some opinions, some interesting opinions. So editors have a mind for names, because that's their business. And they are going to be coming across this name of yours in the letters to the editor. Oh, last week he wrote. Oh, this week he has written. And then when they meet in their, you know, they normally meet in an editorial committee to decide what they are going to cover. When they get together, they'll say, by the way, there's this guy, Simon Peter, he's really been writing about antimicrobial resistance. I've already published 3 of his letters in the letters to the editor. And then someone will say, why don't you call that guy and give him space? He does a bigger piece, an opinion ed. We all want the opinion ed. But that opinion ed, the competition for it is a lot. You can get it. But it's easier to get an opinion ed. That opinion ed, it basically means opinion editorial. This is where the newspapers get opinions from experts, and they publish them in a fairly prominent space, usually page 4 or 5, opinion editorials. So you are not going to get that piece easily. But if you are a frequent writer of letters to the editor, I guarantee you, sooner or later, you are going to get space to say more, because your name gets known, people are interacting with you, and people are feeling that you are not in it for quick money because you don't get paid to do a letter to the editor. Let me rest my case there on that letter to the editor. I need to go towards finishing so that we open for questions. Lucy, I'll need to know whether I have time for an activity. If not, I'll just finish. So the second thing I said is what I called a filler. Now, what is a filler? A filler, it does what it says. It fills space. You know, whenever you are making a newspaper or a magazine and you have done your stories, there are gaps that come on a page. This is a physical problem, but it's also a problem about variety. An editor can produce a newspaper and find all the stuff is so serious. When I'm working on Animal Focus, this happens all the time. I find the first article was this great presentation on canine distemper. Oh, the second article was this thing about antimicrobial resistance. The third thing was about, and I'm thinking, oh my, this magazine is so serious and heavy. It is so, are people going to read this magazine, or are people going to feel that I've taken them back to university with all this heavy material? So I start looking for light material. So fillers are normally a sort of light material or interesting material that's short, normally about 50 words to 100 words. Let me tell you, if you start collecting interesting little stories about fillers, and a filler can even be a picture. So when the next time you go to treat that dog, carry your camera along, and when the dog does a nice trick, shoot the dog doing that nice trick, and then write a small caption. This dog, call the dog Mimi. This is Mimi. He's based in Karen, and last weekend, while I was treating Mimi, he did this nice trick, and I would like to share. You will be published so fast, you won't believe it, because it has a lot of interest and it reaches people easily. So be on the lookout for fillers, interesting veterinary facts. Do you know an animal that produces a lot of urine? Just come up with interesting, funny facts like that. This animal produces, the urine from this animal, these are its features. It can be drunk, it can help. And the editor is going to go, what is this guy talking? If you read The People is a free newspaper. On page 3 of The People, they always have these crazy things that happen around the world, funny things. So if you know something funny about a pig or about a cow, just study that page 3 of The People, and you will find the place for fillers. The world is a stressed place, and people need small things to cheer them, and our fillers can do it. But fillers are also informative. The third way to get easily published and to get going is through reviews. Reviews can be book reviews. It can be through a conference review. It can be through a policy review. Let me tell you something about a policy review, because there are a lot of policies the world doesn't know about the livestock sector. And part of the reason is that we don't do those reviews enough. Or when we do them, our language is very heavy. And I don't have time to talk about heavy language today, but as I've told you, this is the beginning of engagement, and I am challenging you to go to the next step. I'll share some of the next steps that you can take shortly. So a review is somebody who knows something or has experienced something, reviewing it for another person, or sharing their view on what they have experienced for another person. So what is a book review? So I read an interesting book, and then in about 200 words, I want to tell someone else why they should read that book. So I tell you, wow, that book, it covers a topic that's very important for all of us. The topic is how to make money even when you are working, or how to make money when you are sleeping. That's what that book is about. And then I tell you, okay, now the author of that book is somebody who has already practiced what is in that book. And then I go and tell you, these are the 5 things he's saying you could do. So he's saying, invest in real estate. You will make money as you're sleeping. He's saying, invest in the stock market. You will make money as you're sleeping. So, you know, I'm reviewing the book for you. So when you review a policy, what are you going to talk about? There are a lot of policies that we need to review. And when you're going to review the policy, just know that you have a very tight space. You don't have a lot of space. You will be lucky if you get more than 500 words. So you really need to be economical with words, and you really need to be focused in how you are thinking to do that review. You could review the state of veterinary service in a county. And I'm telling you, you're going to be published so fast, you will be surprised if you just decided, let me review the state of the veterinary services in my county. And then you just say, according to me, this is how we are doing, this is where we need to go. Someone is going to love that so much, and they are going to read you. And when you start doing that, what have you started to do? You have started setting the agenda. You have started setting the agenda. You have started framing the story. No one is framing the story for you. You are now framing the story. You are setting the agenda. You have broken the spiral of silence, and you are coming onto the table and getting onto the table with other decision makers and other influencers, and you are making a change in your society. And when we begin to do that, we will be respected as people who work in the livestock sector. There is no way we are going to be respected if we are quiet, if we are not using these tools. So once you are getting better and better in these small things, then it's easier now to get onto the bigger things. Bigger things are things like profiles. A profile is another safe way for you to get published and for you to get writing easily. What is a profile? Get someone interesting like Lucy, like you've seen what Lucy is doing. Do a profile on her. Tell Lucy, Lucy, I want to write your story, and I want to do a profile on you and your work in that space. And one of the things that journalists are taught in school is that you are writing for people, and you need to create stuff that people enjoy reading. And what do people enjoy reading most? People enjoy reading about other people. That is why when the curtains to your home are open, I want to peep through the window and I see how you live in your house. Why? Because I want to see how you live. I don't know, but people mesmerize us. I want to see what car you drive. I want to know what are some of your weaknesses. I want to know, what do you eat? So profiles answer this desire by people to know how other people live. So as a livestock sector, what profiles can we do? We have a lot of interesting profiles we can do. Are there great professionals in our midst who are making a real difference? Do a profile of them. The other day, there was a profile of one of my friends, Dr. Thombe Ndungo, who is basically a vet, and he went into public health and is doing a lot in the HIV sector space. And unfortunately, his profile was not by someone in the livestock sector. It was someone else. And I felt, oh gosh, that is a missed chance. I should have been the one doing that profile, because at the level of being a vet, I understand this man much better than the journalist who did that profile on him. So are there great vets in our midst? Someone who has spent a lot of time teaching vets, someone who has spent a lot of time practicing vets, someone who has done amazing work, the first person to start a clinic in Nairobi. That's a story. the person who sees the most dogs in Nairobi and has really changed. That's a story. Kenya Society for the Protection and Care of Animals. That's a profile waiting to be written. You don't write profiles only about individuals. You also write profiles about organizations. You can also write. And the beauty of a profile is the idea is simple. You're just telling the story of that person or that organization. So an easy way to get published, because the information you share can easily be corroborated. If you write a profile about an organization, like Calro, for example, someone can easily pick the phone and call the Calro communications people and ask, is it true that you have done this? And they'll get an answer. So it's very easy to get published there. So sorry, I seem to have gotten muted. Lucy, does that mean I should be ending?
No, no, Doctor, you are on now. I think.
Okay.
No, please carry on. We love the show.
Okay. Okay. So I was telling you about the Nation news last night, where the sports anchor interviewed the talent scout at Arsenal football club, and it was on Zoom. And I thought, oh my God, what an opportunity Zoom has presented. You can actually interview an expert anywhere around the world today and do their story. So you frame the questions, trace that expert, send them an email, tell them, I want to publish this in Kenya to share with the Kenyan audience. And can you spare me some time? And scientists generally are very generous with the information. They want to get their name out there. They'll give you that interview. So Q&A sessions, pieces, very easy. So don't sit hammering your head. Where will I start? I want to set the agenda. I want to write. Start with simple things. Start with easy winners. And as you get into the mood and into action, you will find that your muscle has grown, and then you can start handling the more difficult pieces. You can start handling the how-to articles. How-to articles is you tell people how to do something. How do you milk properly? You know, some people don't know how to milk properly. How do you feed a cow properly so that you can get the best output? So those are a bit more difficult things, because you really need to be on point, use easy language, and reach that audience better. And sometimes you're going to share an how-to article, and then the editor will say, so what? You know, when I was in journalism school, I want to share this with you to encourage you. We had an editor there. Some of you might have heard of him. He was called Magayu. He started a paper some time back and then it closed. But he was one of those veterans in that space. And one day he came to class and he told us, in a very reflective mode, he said, I don't know why journalists use very violent language in very simple things. So he told us that in the newsroom, it's very easy for people to say that story is rubbish. They don't use good language that we are not going to use this story. That story is rubbish. And then they don't refuse a story. They kill a story. You know, you kill a story. So why can't you refuse a story? Why are you killing it? And then they don't take pictures. They shoot pictures. So fairly aggressive language. And it basically shows you the urgency, the immediacy that the media is operating at. And they are going, when you send your how-to articles, they are going to ask, so what? So what? So what? Once I've known how to milk properly, tupa hiyo kitu hapo kwa dustbin. Let's go and see what Ruto is doing next week. You know, language like that happens in the newsroom all the time. So I want to spare you that kind of misery. Before you get there, you will be strong. You'll have strong shock absorbers by having your readers' letters published, by having your how-to published, by having your profiles published. So before the editor dumps your article or kills it, he thinks, oh gosh, but this Simon Peter, he has been giving us a lot of good material within the last, I've published him like 4 or 5 times. This is a guy we should listen to. And then you see, you have begun to earn your voice. So the other things like opinion editorials, which I talked about, is where you give an expert view and you go on to like feature articles. A feature article is something interesting about a topic, and you really cover that feature article and answer the key questions. Why, who, where, when, and all those kinds of questions. So I want to use my last few minutes to just share a few tips on what you should not do in your writing and what you should do. And then after that, I will seek guidance from Lucy, whether I can give you one exercise. So what are some of the things that I've seen? I'm an editor, by the way. So I've edited 11 issues of Animal Focus now. So I'm not talking from theory. I'm talking from working with vets because we published 11 magazines by vets. And one of the things I want to tell you is that, and please, people who have contributed to Animal Focus, don't take this personally. I'm doing this in the interest of saving the profession in the area of writing. So just take it well. So a lot of our writing is boring, just boring. I mean, it's not the sort of thing that will make you feel excited on a Sunday afternoon to look forward. I'll be reading about a veterinary story. I'll be reading about livestock. No, it's boring. You pick an article and someone starts, this article discusses the vaccination of animals on rabies. Please, how is that supposed to excite me? You know, I just start reading it. I'm a vet, I'm an editor, but when I pick these articles, I'm dying all the time. And I worked a lot with Kariri and some of my colleagues like Isaiah Chacha, and they'll tell you that when I'm editing that magazine, I'm very difficult to reach because the deadline has passed. And Simon, where is our magazine? But they don't know I'm dying because I have to gather courage to look at some of those articles. Oh, very boring. So guys, that's one problem with our writing, boring. 2, the second problem with our writing, full of veterinary and technical jargon, very difficult words. I mean, we use words like pathology, we use words like prognosis, we use words like medicaments, we use words like antimicrobial resistance. Okay, if you are writing for vets or for scientists, it makes sense to use those words. But unfortunately, many of us are also carrying that kind of language when we are talking to farmers. A farmer does not want to hear your animal is diseased. Just tell the farmer the animal is sick. That's daily language. your animal is sick. Yeah. Don't tell the farmer the symptoms of this disease are this. No, just tell them what shows your animal is sick, or the signs of the sickness are this. You know, daily language. If you are going to make a difference and to start earning the right to be heard as a scientific writer or an animal scientist writer, is you have to bring yourself to the level where you speak the language of the people. Don't talk about diseases, talk about sicknesses. Don't talk about prognosis, talk about what are the chances this animal will improve. Don't talk about management of this disease. You see, most ordinary people, they meet managers in offices. Now you are talking of management of the disease, and someone is wondering, how, there's management around a disease also. You see, now, but when you're in class, management of disease makes sense. But you are talking to the farm and you are talking of management of the disease, and someone is struggling to be with you. Just tell that farm, how are we going to handle this sickness, or how are we going to help this animal to improve? So in our writing, we need to dejargonize our writing. You need to dejargonize our writing. Actually, there's something that has always amused me a lot when I'm editing our articles. And I find that whenever we refer to veterinary doctor, we always use capitals. It's like this veterinary thing, we value it so high, which is good, but until it has entered our writing and created bad habits within us, we are using capital letters. This is a very, but you see, those are the things that turn off ordinary readers. So dejargonize your writing and bring it to the level of the ordinary people. So that's the second problem. Someone called writing that is difficult to understand gobbledygook, and it's actually an English word. Just check in your dictionary what gobbledygook means. And that word alone should tell you how difficult it is for people to appreciate writing that has a lot of jargon. So second problem. Now the third problem, which I won't dwell on much because we've spent a lot of time talking about it, is just not enough people write. That's a problem that I hope you'll address. I would rather deal with the problem of correcting our writing, editing it, and beating it into shape, even if I have to be late with deadlines, than dealing with the problem of people did not write. So third problem is not enough people write. The fourth problem is whenever vets write, they look for very difficult concepts to write about. For example, you don't, but I want to, at the risk of annoying one or two people, to commend a vet I work a lot with, Dr. Agnes Maina. I know she's on this call. I really enjoy her writing. And vets, I want to challenge you, please get your hand on Dr. Agnes Maina's writing. And that is a vet that I can point out. Of course, there's also Dr. Isaiah Chacha, but I would like to talk about Dr. Maina for one reason, and that is she makes her writing about, she brings daily things, or she writes about it in an easy way that's accessible to people. For example, there's this article she wrote about a snake that was brought to her. This patient was a snake, and there was a bone that was stuck in the mouth of that snake. And I read that piece. In fact, before editing the piece, I decided to read the piece and see what happened. How did she handle the snake? And how did she go into the mouth of the snake? She actually went into the mouth of that snake and pulled out that whatever was obstructing. How can an editor refuse to publish something like that? It's interesting, scary, sends shivers down your spine, and you are thinking, gosh, there are people who treat snakes in this world. Okay, you know? So very interesting from Dr. Agnes Maina. There are things in your environment that people want to know about. Common, ordinary things, you know, that are in your area of specialty, relate them to the environment around you and write about it, you know? I don't find that enough. I find as vets wanting to write. Sometimes I think when vets think of writing, or when animal scientists think of writing, they approach it as though they're writing for a journal. Please, when you're writing for a journal, that's totally a different genre with its own rules and its own regulations. When you are writing for common people, you think like a common person. Look at politicians. Politicians have really beaten us at this game. And you look at very serious politicians doing the Jerusalem jig. Do you think they enjoy that jig? Or do you think they have nothing to do other than to do that jig? Or, I mean, why do these grandfathers of people, billionaires, people, why do they go to a platform and do a jig? It's because it resonates with that audience they are trying to reach. So they are going to do whatever resonates with that audience. And the livestock sector, we need to start studying that audience and seeing what resonates with them. And that is what will inform our writing. And when we begin to write for them, when the journalists, by the way, people in the media, they know their audiences very well. Someone like Lucy, who publishes Animal People, she knows her audience. I'm telling you, you wake her up at night, at midnight, and ask her, describe your audience. She'll tell you, my audience is this kind of age. This is the kind of work they do. This is their level of income. This is where they go to buy their supplies. This is the kind of people. And as an editor, that's what you must know to be employed as an editor. I am a communications manager at KCB Foundation, and I need to know my publics. And at any one time, I need to be asking myself, publics as stakeholders, there I go using jargon from the communications side, stakeholders, the people who have a stake in what you are doing, both internal and external, we call them publics. So I need to know one of my stakeholders is the government of Kenya. I need to understand this government of Kenya. How do they like this thing done? You know, what do they think about this kind of thing? Whom can I reach when I want to reach the government of Kenya to talk about this kind of thing? It's my business. So as a livestock person who wants to write, you need to know who your audience is, and you need to have a growing appreciation of what they enjoy, of what they don't enjoy, of what they want to read. And I can assure you that you will go far if you go that way. Very, very soon, you will be getting published, and you will have joined that list of people who are making a difference in terms of agenda setting. So I would like to stop there. I know there's a lot that I can share. I hope that in that what I've shared has inspired you a little bit, stirred some desire to fight, to challenge this thing. How can Dr. Alubbe say we are boring? How can Dr. Alubbe say vets write in a boring way? You know, we have to prove this guy wrong. Not all vets write boring things. I've told you about Agnes Maina. Vet on Call, I read it all the time. It's an amazing piece of writing. And please do the reading. Vet on Call is an amazing piece of writing. I read what Dr. Meso writes in the Standard, amazing piece of writing. Dr. Dieno. All these are vets who are making a difference in the media, and I enjoy them. But what is 5 vets in a field where we have over 3,000 vets and over 10,000 paravets? I want to see more. I want to see a deluge. People should be struggling to say, these guys are overwriting, man. And of course, when we are writing more, we shall be published more. So Dr. Lucy, I think I need guidance from you on whether I can do an exercise.
Quite amazing presentation, Dr. Alubbe. Thank you so much. I'm sure now we are all fired up to continue with the work, and if you have not started, to at least continue your writing. I think what we do is we can take questions in the place of the exercises. And the first question that I'm reading here is, say something about blogs. Please tell us something about blogs. And fellow colleagues, if you have any question, just post it on the chat. And you can also raise your hand and you'll be able to speak to Dr. Alubbe one-on-one. So say something about blogs, Dr. Alubbe.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about blogs. Thank you for that question. Number one, blogs is the easiest way for you to get published today, because you can start a blog today and you will get published, and you can share your opinions today. The other good thing about blogs, they are costless. It's like having a mini website. They are read all over the world. Anyone can access them. So a blog gives you an amazing platform to reach so many people without much editorial interference or editorial guidance. You become your own gatekeeper almost. So you become an agenda setter and a gatekeeper. And that's why bloggers have become a big part of the agenda setting today. Bloggers set the agenda. There are industries where big organizations like Apple and Google follow certain bloggers because those people have created a reputation for giving expert advice. However, I would like to make this qualification that for you to be successful as a blogger, you have to obey all the rules we've talked about writing. Your blog has to be interesting. When you're blogging, it could be about anything, but it needs to be interesting. It needs to capture the attention of the audience. So for you to begin a blog, I'm just advising you, it's quite easy. Get going today, don't wait for tomorrow. But as you get going, please obey the rules we've discussed on writing. Write simple. There's even a bigger challenge in writing on blogs than writing on paper. Because when you write on blogs, you use the same skills that electronic media uses. So you cannot write very long sentences on electronic media. It's very simple sentences, more impact, and short sentences. So you need to learn how to clothe your information in those short sentences that will capture attention. And you know yourself, you visit websites. How many times do you move from a web page because it's too complex? You know, you just say, oh gosh, that information is so packed. So you move away. So you can easily do audience research by studying your own self, your approach to websites and what attracts you. So write simply, get going. Someone said that it's like riding a bicycle. You will never learn until you start it. So start doing your blogging and get going. But I just want to say that please use the resources that are available to you. Lucy is here. She's offering herself to help the livestock sector to get up to speed. Share some of your articles before you upload them on the blog. Just send them to her. She's going to read them and critique them for you. Alex said yesterday that Chams Media is available to help us. Send something to Chams Media. I've dealt with Alex. He's a very generous man with his time. Send something to me. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to tell you, still too heavy, work on it. So there are a lot of resources in our midst that can help you. And some of the people I've told you about, I think that at some point we should put out a list of livestock people who are doing good writing so that you can approach them just for some mentoring. But a great way to go and very accessible. and very, very easy to implement. And let me tell you that you can actually make money blogging, because if you build your blog to a certain level, there are advertisers who would be willing to come on board and advertise on your blog. And sometimes you can even do a deal with Google, whereby if a certain number of people visit your blog, Google will share with you advertising revenue of people who advertise there. So I think that's what I would say. More questions?
Yes, thank you. More questions on blogs. And I like what you have said, Daktari, about blogging, really, because even for animal people, we are constantly looking for writers who can blog for us. We have once in a while received requests from, especially in the pharmaceuticals industries, to do a product review. And remember, a product review should be done by a professional who has used it in the field. So if you nurture the skills in writing and writing blogs, pharmaceuticals are looking for reviewers for their products to use, so that they can publish it. So quite a lot of opportunities there. As Animal People magazine, we welcome blogs and we welcome letters. Another question, and I'll ask you this because it has been asked twice, is on book writing. Please do give us tips on how to write a book. Yeah, so your take on that.
How to write a book, that's a big question, not easy to answer in 1 minute. However, let me say that it's one of the most critical and strategically important things we could do, or anyone can do. That's writing a book. So the first thing I would like to say is before you think of writing a book, you need to have a fairly big idea that you want to cover in that book. Because generally, a book doesn't have to be so many pages, but it's generally regarded as an authoritative treatment of a concept. You know, when people say, I'm going to buy a book, or I'm going to borrow a book, or what is their expectation of the book? It's different from their expectation of an article. So if I was to read an article, say, like about AMR, the expectations I bring to the article are very different from the expectations I'll bring to a book about AMR. I expect the book to be, to have accurate data, to have full information. I expect that by reading that book, I'll get a full understanding of that subject. So before you consider writing a book, you really need to think about the concept you want to talk about. And you really need to be able to flesh out that concept. So the process of book writing basically begins with you developing an outline. So sit down and develop an outline. So you want to write about AMR. So ask yourself, if I was to cover AMR fully, what would be my outline? An outline is like, what will be the chapters in the book, or what will be the contents of the book? So obviously, if you're going to talk about AMR, we expect you to tell us what it is. We expect you to tell us how to know it's there. We expect you to share with us how to control it. We expect you to share with us the dangers. We expect you to cover all these aspects. So before you begin writing, never ever sit down and just start writing a book, because you will begin meandering. You will be like a preacher who has gone to church and you are called to the front, or someone who has gone to the mosque and you are called to the front to give a talk, and you begin a talk without any direction, structure, or, you are just going to meander and say a lot of things. So develop an outline and we book professionals can even take a whole month developing the outline. It doesn't, I mean, that is the most important part of the book, the outline, because it's like the one that will guide the journey. It's the road. You are going to Kitale, you are not going to go through the forest. You have a road, so you have to follow that road. So your outline is the road. And you know, some books take even 6 years to write. Can you imagine how you'll write a book for 6 years? Like, let us give an example. Suppose you started covering diseases of sheep and goats. That's the book you wanted to write. That's not a simple book to write. You're not going to write that book in 1 month, I can tell you. It will probably take you 2-3 years to write that book. So if you do not have a clear list of your topics and how they'll be covered, by the time you reach Naivasha, utaacha kwenda Kitale, utaingia kwa bush hapo, uingie Hell's Gate, uanze kuona wanyama hapo. And we see that in books, you know, every publisher in Kenya, in any single day, they get so many books that are meandering, they are not focused on the target. So develop an outline, critique that outline, make sure the outline it covers the topics in the book. And then after you have developed an outline, then the next step in your writing is what we call research. We haven't had time to talk about research in this session. So Lucy has a lot of to-dos for the next session, research for communication or for writers. But you see, there is no way you are going to have all the material you need to share if you have not researched. So you need to do thorough research. There is an expression we use in writing, and this is the expression: always write out of depth. Don't write out of shallowness. Usijue tu kitu kidogo about a topic alafu unafikiri sasa utaandika kitabu. You'll run dry very fast, and people can actually tell someone who is writing out of shallowness, because you start describing a disease, unatoa paragraph 3 na umekwisha. But when you are writing out of depth, you are like an ocean. You are deep. Your knowledge in that area is deep. So you can actually choose what you're sharing, and you know how knowledge relates to each other. So do your outline, next do your research. But don't get lost in research. Research loses a lot of people because it's very hard in Kenya because we have not been very good in preserving knowledge. So sometimes you want to do research on a topic, you go to our library, you don't get the book. You go to some of our respected universities, you're not getting the book, and you're wondering, so where am I going to get a research on this? There's a time we just needed data. I work closely with some poultry professionals, and there's a time we just needed data. How many chicken are there in Kenya? Wait, swali ngumu. How many chicken are there in Kenya? And the only person who finally helped us is basically this person we call Google. And of course, there was some document from the government, which was giving data for 2 years back. So research is hard, you know, so you got to do it, but don't get lost there. So after you've done your research, you go to the next stage where you actually start the actual writing. You are sharing what you've learned, and you are following your outline. So you follow that step, and you finally have a book, which we call a manuscript. The technical language of a completed book is called a manuscript. At that point, when your manuscript is complete, make sure it's tight. Make sure it's edited at your level. Don't finish writing and throw it to an editor or to a publishing house. You'll be shocked sometimes even when you edit yourself. So the advice we give is when you finish writing, whatever writing you're doing, even if it's a letter to the editor, don't just say send and send it. Some of you must have been embarrassed, like I've been severally, when you do an email to someone and you click send and you say, gosh, I misspelled the person's email I'm writing to. I'm writing to Simon and I wrote Smon. And oh gosh, and it's right at the top there, dear Smon. And you're just wondering, gosh, what happened? So to avoid such things, you need to self-edit first. So when you are finished writing your book, put it aside. And this is why I said some books can even take 2 or 3 years to write. So put it aside, rest your brain, disengage your brain from that thing for almost like a month, you know, come back with a fresh mind and then self-edit. And do that like twice. Don't do it once. I'll share an experience I had with Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I worked with Ngugi wa Thiong'o when I was at East African Educational Publishers. And you know, he's a very famous writer. He's written a lot of books, River Between and all those books. I mean, I don't even need to tell you, you know about them. And he's always listed for the Nobel Literature Prize, but he never seems to get it. Anyway, so, you know, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, when he is writing, he can be very difficult to work with because he writes the first time, you think the book is ready, then he tells you, please let me rewrite this book. He writes the second time, oh, you think now it's ready. You know, this is Ngugi, this is not Simon. He has over 45 books to his credit. Oh, he comes and writes it a third time, edits it and rewrites a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, and a sixth time, and please believe it, and a seventh time. So you tell him, hey, professor, hii kitabu iko tayari, aki utamaliza hii kitabu tu kwa kuiandika. Wacha. To get a book from Ngugi and publish it, we literally had to snatch him. Paka sasa, you become a bit violent in a literary sense. Professor, hiyo imetosha, wacha, hiyo imetosha. So you pick the book, you start publishing the book, and then you get a call from who? From Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. There's another chapter there. I would have liked to read. No, Professor, just stop it. So if professionals are rewriting 7 times, what hope do we mere mortals have who write once and expect our work to be published? So these people who earn the right to be listened to by the world, they work hard. And they haven't reached where they've reached by accident. It's through working hard. So edit your book at least 3 times and then begin looking around which publisher publishes this kind of work. Don't go to Oxford or go to Longhorn just carelessly like that. No, you will break your heart and then you might fail to write another book. Do some market research and find out which publisher in Kenya publishes the kind of stuff I have written. If you don't find one in Kenya, please do not submit your book to them. Begin looking outside Kenya. Now it is a global village. Your ideas are not limited to Kenya. And I can guarantee you that if you write a book on livestock, it will be read worldwide. It won't just be read in Kenya. So if you don't get someone in Kenya who is doing that kind of stuff, that's the book. Lucy, any more questions?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Alubbe. There is a question here on, so you are encouraging us to write. Where are the readers, Daktari? Kenya is not a reading country, so whom are we writing for?
Anyone who says Kenya is not a reading country has not done audience study. I can tell you that I worked in publishing for 18 years and we were making books and we were getting salaries. I mean, where are these people getting money to pay us if Kenyans don't read? So I hear a lot of those sorts of statements that Kenyans don't read, and I'm telling you it's false. Kenyans read. What would be more accurate is if you said Kenyans don't read as much as Americans, or Kenyans don't read as much as the British. That would be true. I would accept that. But Kenyans do read. But what you need to ask yourself, and what we have asked ourselves many times around publishing strategy meetings, is this question, is what do Kenyans want to read? It is a wrong approach for any writer to write whatever they want to write, and then say people are not reading. So who told you people want to read the kind of writing you're writing? You know, why are you so self-important as a writer to think that you are going to dictate to people what they want to read? So whenever you go that way, you are going to fail. The only writers who can dictate to people what they'll read are writers who have earned a name. I mean, if Ngugi wa Thiong'o tomorrow came and wrote about marriage, okay, we'll read him. Although we know he might not be an expert in marriage, but we know, Ngugi ndio ameandika, wacha tusome anasema nini. He has earned his name. But for those of us like you and me who have not yet earned their name as writers, please ask yourself, what do Kenyans want to read? And they are reading. If you go to TBC, I go to TBC at least 2 or 3 times every day. People are buying books. The Nation, I told you, sells 150,000 copies, and those people reading. The Standard sells about 50,000 copies every day, and those people reading. So what we need to ask ourselves is, how do we fit in the Kenyan reading habit before trying to change it to become like the American one, where a book comes out and it's sold 5 million copies within a week? Yes, Kenyans are going to buy 3,000 copies. Why can those 3,000 be your book? Most of these novels that are written by Kenyans, they are sold at a rate of about 3,000 copies to 5,000 copies a year. So we don't read that much, but we do read, and those 3,000 could be yours. And I can tell you that I've seen writers become wealthy by selling only those 3,000 copies. So all you need to do is now leverage on the book. There's something we call creating a series. So you don't write one book. So instead of writing just on chicken, why can't you also write on ducks? Why can't you also write on geese? Why can't you write on, so you have these 5 birds. So you create a series. So you write on chicken, you write on geese, you write on ducks, and so on. And so you create a series. And so people are just going to buy 1,000 copies of one book. But when you think about the five books in the series, they'll buy 5,000. So we need to be shrewd to fit in a culture that doesn't read as much as we would want it, but actually reads.
Final question. And participants, you bear with me. I seem to have lost all the charts. I can't see them from my end. But there was a question. I think I read a personal question here. How did you transition from being a vet to a writer? What's your journey and how has it been?
Okay. Whenever people have asked me this question, I've always told them that I've really not transitioned. I'm a vet. I mean, if you are asking that question, I can share with you the struggles I've had in the publishing sector, because every profession guards itself jealously. And my first few years in publishing were very difficult because people would basically hear that, hey, what is a vet doing in a publishing house, And they would snicker under their breath and wonder, what right do you have to sit on tables with us? And I learned to just share with these people that, that when you are a vet or when you are a livestock professional, you have a big knowledge base that goes into books. For example, right now in the science syllabus, animal welfare issues are being dealt with. I mean, children are being taught on how to treat animals, how to take care of animals. And this is veterinary medicine, basically, or livestock issues. So I have never thought of myself as having transitioned from vet. I've always thought that communication is an integrating profession. It's like accounting or it's like law. You see, you can never have a lawyer who just does law. You'll have a lawyer specializing in animal rights. You'll have a lawyer doing sports. There are lawyers in sports, and there are lawyers in every profession. There's law. In every profession, there's accounting. In the same way, communication is a cross-cutting discipline. It's not a profession on its own. And that's why even within the communications professional, scholars still argue whether communications is a profession, can be treated as a standalone profession in the same way like, say, medicine or veterinary medicine. So communication is cross-cutting. And I think for me, what has helped me to grow in that area, I've not finished the growth. Since I became a communications manager, there's a lot that I'm learning to do, a lot of difficult stuff in terms of setting agenda, in terms of sharing information. But 3 things I can say is that number 1, you need interest. You need the interest. Without interest, you're not going to make the necessary effort, and you won't even know where there are opportunities. But when you open your eyes and you have interest, you've made the first step. The second step is you need some passion, you know. Kajwang said there's no passionometer. Hey, that's a hard word. Passion meter. Okay, let me call it a passion meter. There's no meter to measure how passionate you are about a situation, but you will not go far without passion. You need to be excited. You need to get to be walking into your clinic and thinking, wow, I can make a difference through communication, you know? The last step is to be practical. It's not enough to have interest and passion and leave it there. Get practical. Write some ABCs. What steps can you take today? Like, we've had this amazing 4 days. So what are you going to do? Write some practical steps. Put it in your to-do list. This week, I will submit a letter to the editor, to the nation. Let's begin there and do something. I say that I'm going to share some practical steps you can take. Go for short courses. There are master courses on writing that last about 2 to 3 weeks. Apply for one. EDX is a good one. They give free courses. You can audit a course. I know Lucy is thinking about way forward, and she'll probably be coming up with a short, longer course, not costing so much, 20 to 30K or 40K. And you can go through a certificate course on writing, where the issues we've delved in or just sort of touched are gone into more depth. So you make those practical steps and create your contacts list. Get to know editors that you can approach and ask some of these questions. So what do you think of my writing? And you will be on your way.
Okay, thank you, Daktari, for those wonderful tips. We'll take just one final question because we have spoken a lot about writing the letters to the editor. But how do you submit a letter to the editor? That question was asked on the chat.
If you pick, nowadays a lot of submissions are done through email. So at the bottom of the letters to the editor, I know in the standard, they will give you the email. Normally it's the editor's email. And in the nation, they'll also give you the email. So once you are sure that the standard is good, just email them. And please let me just tell you that it's a very senior editor who reads those letters, because anything published in a newspaper can get you sued. So for example, if I sent a letter to the editor of the nation and I say, Lucy stole $1 billion, Bob, and I'm writing to shame her in public, she should be ashamed of herself. You know, if that guy publishes that thing, Lucy can make millions from the Daily Nation because she has been libeled. And it was just a letter to the editor from a fool called Simon Alubbe. So very senior editors read those letters before they publish them. So you can be sure they'll get attention, and that's how to submit them.
Thank you very much. You know, a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of gratitude coming your way, Dr. Alubbe, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation, and even the interactions that we've had with you today. I'm actually wondering how to proceed because we are at 11 o'clock, and being a Sunday, I feel we have had like loads of good things coming from you, Dr. Alubbe. So I'll ask you to make your final presentation unless there's a very burning question from the participants. But let me just read something from Mercy here, from his a chart. Mercy says we should be having such presentations often because most of us don't have social life. We are mostly involved in vet work, cocoon, and forget there is more out there. Thanks, Dr. Alubbe. Such a wonderful comment coming from Mercy. And I think this is really the feeling of all of us, that we should be having such spaces where we, as the animal people industry, come together and share our experiences outside the normal way of doing things. So we are excited as animal people to be part of this journey and even be the leaders in this. There is a question on your number, your email address, Dr. Alubbe. People are looking for you to connect with you. And even there is a question from Samuel Onanga Kinara. Where do you come from? We need to visit you.
Okay.
So you can.
So I've shared my email. I've shared my email on the chat, and my number I've also shared on the chat. Sorry, that last 0 is 10 too much, so I'll repeat that. Okay, so that's my number now, well captured. So basically, I've lived in Nairobi most of my life, although I come from Moy's Bridge, a small town near Kitale, Moy's Bridge. And we do a lot of farming there. I visit my mom a lot there. Of course, she's always complaining that the vets are overcharging her. So someone needs to write a piece for her and tell her how hard it is to become a vet or even to provide that service. So, yeah. I don't know if I should do my closing pitch, Lucy.
No, but maybe before you do the closing remarks, there's a question of, please make a point, Doc, of talking to final year students who are lost of such opportunities as they step out. So there's a question of mentorship and motivating others, the youngsters. Your comment?
I think one of the big ideas I want to put out there to KVA through this presentation is to start a blog on our website. And I know Lucy will be running a blog on the Animal People website, because that is one place that these young people can easily access and get a lot of guidance, because sometimes you just know, you need to know where the resources are listed, because you are coming out of campus or out of college and you do not know a particular place you can go. There's no physical place you can go and get all these ideas. So if we could host these ideas on some of our websites, writing opportunities. For example, I am quite willing to work with people like Lucy and other professionals to track writing opportunities and just publish them on either the Animal People website or the KVA website. I follow, I'm a member of a website that does that, but it's not done in Kenya. So they list for you all the opportunities. So when someone wants an article on an issue on livestock, we just list it there. Anyone out there who wants to write about this? So that would be a great thing to do, Lucy. If you do that, your website will crash, and you'll get so many page views that you can upgrade your website to a real great level. So people visiting and just seeing the opportunities that are there in terms of writing. Now, in terms of mentoring, I think that there's a lot of goodwill in this space. I sat through Chamwada's presentation, and I could not help feeling just the eagerness he was displaying. Just come, and he just kept saying that. And Lucy has done the same. So look out for us. Start with Lucy. You have my number. Come to Simon. Go to Chams Media. Go to Agnes Maina. We are going to sort of give you, point you in the right direction. Sometimes all you need is to be pointed. All of us are very intelligent people, and you just need someone to point you in the right direction, and you can make the next step. So that might be what we've done today and what we'll keep doing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daktari. We can't have enough. There's so many questions, so many comments, but we have to leave it here at 11:11. So please do make your final remarks, and then we will proceed with Dr. Mwirigi doing the closing remarks for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy. I've really enjoyed being in this space. Everybody says that every dark cloud has a silver lining, and I've not known the practical sort of experience of that till COVID happened. Can you imagine what Zoom has done? Here, I'm seated at home, I have a cup of tea next to me, and my daughter's here making noise and making faces at me when I don't communicate well. And I'm in touch with 150 plus people. So what this space has done, we must really maximize it. So thank you for that opportunity. I am willing to be involved in other sessions where we can mentor each other more on writing. But my fellow professionals, please get going, start where you are, start penning something. Even if you are rejected, there's a lot of rejection in writing. Don't worry, none of us ever gets published the first time, but with every rejection, you'll get better. And one of these days, it will be you sitting where Lucy and I are sitting and helping someone else. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful, 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 Dr. Alubbe. It's such an honor to listen and to always work with you. I'm sure there's a lot we can do together, and as Participatory Communications Network and Animal People, we will continue working and enriching the veterinary profession, because as we say in the Animal People and at PCN, really what separates people from where they want to go is all about communication. When you communicate what you have, people will listen and people will want to follow you. And when they follow you, money follows. But most of the time, I know what we try to do is to put money first. When we put money first, I think that's where we go wrong. Maybe it's just do the deed, the humanity, and then money will come after you. So very, very pleased to have you, and very, very excited, for the challenges that you have given to us. So we want to do, really our next session was to talk about Zoom. Oh, and there's so much we can talk about, and we realize Zoom is really, really practical. So unless you have a burning question on how we were able to put up this, I will just take you through quickly on how to do Zoom. So Zoom is an online software that all of us have on our computers, and you can use it for meetings up to 1,000 people and above. And as PCN, what we have done is we have invested in the infrastructure. As Dr. said, there's a lot of opportunities that COVID has presented, of course, depending on how you look at it. So when previously PCN used to do a lot of training for the professional industry. We started in 2006. Oh, we are really, really old now. And we have specialized in productions in radio. We have set up various community radios across Kenya. Some succeeded, some failed. One is still ongoing in Isiolo, but managed by a different person. So when we started, we knew that we wanted to go into communication, which is not the normal way of doing things. We wanted to do audio because I'm specialized in radio production. So when this opportunity came up, COVID came up and we were running some project for USAID, Kenya Crops and Dairy Market Systems. And it became very difficult to go to the field to even do the trainings in person. And with USAID rules, we were asked to stay put, not to travel anywhere. That was in March. So we started doing the trainings for over, 500 people on Zoom. I must say, initially it was very difficult because people were in the village, they didn't have airtime. I saw people asking about bundles. Those were challenges that we had to overcome by supplying bundles directly to the people who are participating in the training. And we have produced several Animal People magazines. We began last year in September because we saw the need to really make science available for all of us. I work with Wild Animal Protection, and there I work with vets, I work with animal health professionals, and one of the key barriers we had to overcome as the head of communication for Wild Animal Protection was to make sure that the language that is used in science reaches to the common mwananchi. So we had to orientate our mind, learn to really communicate. So from that experience and the experience we had with the USAID project in March, we were asked by your regulator if we can do some trainings on communication. And initially we even did not know what to communicate and how to go about it. But through the help of people like Dr. Alubbe, that's how we got here. And so we had to invest in infrastructure, and one of them is Zoom. So there are many things you can do on Zoom. You can do meetings, you can do polls, you can do breakout rooms, but you have to buy the Zoom software. Purchasing is online, and I know there are also other ICT practitioners who are working with industries like you to have them install Zoom. So there's a lot you can do, and what I would urge you to do is Zoom provides at least for 40 minutes free of charge. So you can start your practice there, learn how to do it, learn how to set meetings, because once in a while you'll be asked to, even in your own family meetings, if you want to connect with the people, for those who are in the counties, you want to connect with people in Nairobi, you want to have a big meeting, you can actually, even weddings, you can actually do it through Zoom. So I would encourage you to go in and just try to learn. There are various packages. Again, they are all there. You can go and learn. And so there's so much we can do. And we are hoping that we'll get a chance later in the week to even do the presentation to KVB. So they'll be able to cascade it down to you. But if you need our help, please, we are available for any help that you might need. Finally, I can see a lot of people asking for our numbers, our contacts. So what I'll do, I'll just project something here where you can really get to us. First, we are looking for articles constantly. You can, let me just share my screen finally, share screen. So you can send your stories, at least for those who want to practice or to put in practice what we have learned today. Our email address is editor@animalpeople.or.ke. The joys of working from home clearly. So you can share your story, your blogs to the email address there. And the good thing with Animal People is for every story we publish, you get an opportunity to get a byline. And I know nowadays byline, in case you want to progress with your career, and you have a story published, you are right there in an interview and you tell them, I also publish, there'll be, at least you get ahead of the others. How we do it, I know Dr. Matole was on this call. I was trying to look for him earlier. We have, what Animal People does is we look for people working in animal people. We look for animal people, and our latest cover features Dr. Matole. You will all get a copy of this magazine in your inbox, in your email. That's why we asked you to share your email address. We'll be able to share it with you. So that's how our cover looks like. We look for people who can inspire, because Animal People is about inspiring the animal people industry. We look for inspirational speakers. We look for people who are doing different things, people who are touching lives, people who are really making a difference in the animal world. And I must appreciate, so far we have covered Dr. Matole and Dr. Chibeu, and we are looking for more people. We spoke about rejection. Many times we have gone out, we want to cover a story and people say, oh, no, I'm too shy. I don't want to appear there. Oh, I don't have a story to tell. You know, sometimes you might not have a story to tell the way you see ourselves, but out there, people see a story they can tell. So it's good we all come in. Please, in case you want to be featured in the Animal People, you have an interesting work you are doing, please do get in touch again through the email address animalpeople, editor@animalpeople.or.ke. I must appreciate Dr. Matole and Dr. Chibeo for really agreeing to us to cover their story. So our email address is editor@animalpeople.or.ke. Finally, there were some questions on how we get your certificates. Let me just try and get that chart up. I have to stop share. Some of the questions you are asking is how do we get your certificates? Your certificates will be digital, so we'll send them through your email address. Hence the reason we said, please do submit your email address to leagitao@animalpeople.or.ke. Why is an email important? Because that's where we send you the course materials. That is the presentation that we've had. We'll also send you your certificate in there. So please do submit everything there. Lucy, please reach out to us in pharmaceutical industry as well. So we'll try and do that. So the commitment that we are making for you or to you today is that Animal People magazine will try to reach out to you as much as possible. We appreciate that you have accepted us, and we really feel that we are part of the Animal People tribe that is trying to make a change in the lives of animals and as well in the lives of people, in our own lives, because there is no separation. So what I will ask Dr. Mwirigi Jacinta, a great YouTuber, one of persons who are trying to make a difference in our lives, to make for us the closing remarks, and then we'll leave it here. But okay, someone asked, Lucy, kindly put your email box. I'll give you the quick one. You need my email, it's lucywanjiko@gmail. Tafadhali, we said, do not send it here. We need your email address on Leah's inbox. That is leagitao@gmail. I'll just type that. So you can send your email address and your KVB number as well, so that we are able to generate your certificates, which you will get maybe in the next few weeks or days. One last thing is for the presentations, we'll share them on PCN YouTube. And again, we'll also send that YouTube page so that you can go in there in case you know anyone who missed, maybe your course partner missed one of the sessions, they can go back to our YouTube page and they'll find the presentations there and they'll follow up. In terms of your self-work, today we'll give the self-work. Later, it will just be a commitment. Which commitment do you have? Which commitment are you making to yourself after the training? So we will also send that on WhatsApp as usual. Oh, other things that are coming up is your experience. Oh, seems I didn't say thank you, Machuchu, for that question. You ask, what is my background? My background is in communication. I have majored in communication planning. I have worked with several NGOs in the communication world, doing what Dr. Alubbe is currently doing. Worked with ActionAid and for many years, and then moved to World Animal Protection for many years. I also do consider myself as a media entrepreneur, having founded Isiolo FM and other radio stations across the world, but really started my work in radio at KBC and later transitioning to writing and doing communication management. So that's my background. Maybe next time I'll be on the hot seat like Dr. Alubbe and we can discuss my journey. I'll be happy to share with you all. So I have sent everything there. Please send your email address and KVB registration number to leagitao@animopeople.or.ke so that we can be able to generate your certificates and also give the list to Dr. Mary Agutu, who is at KVB. So over to you, Dr. Mwirigi. I'll just unmute you now, so you can do the closing remarks for us. I'm looking for Dr. Mwirigi, please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Let me start by congratulating you and the other organizers, plus all the presenters, and all of us participants. I think we have done a great job for the last 4 days. My closing remarks will just to maybe say, as a participant, we have really enjoyed the program, and I'm requesting that you do more because there is more that can be done. Next time, let us share as veterinarians what we have been doing so that you can know and you can be able to put us in the list of the veterinarians who have something to say. I have been trying myself to be in the media. Let me just share within just 2 minutes on my journey. I started with a computer class in 2002, where I learned the topic on the publisher topic. From there, we were given homework on how to publish something, and I published a manual on meat inspection. That time I was in meat inspection. Then later on, I did a postgraduate course, 2 courses. And in those courses, we were forced to write journal articles. I wrote some journal articles, and from there, I wrote some books, academic and non-academic. And then we did a survey. I was now in the field on foot and mouth, and we were able with my colleagues to publish an article in the Kenya Veterinarian. From there, I joined the Agriculture Sector Development Support Program, ASDSP, and we did a documentary, and I put it on YouTube. That was in 2016, and it has not been active since then. I've just reactivated it 2 months ago. And then later on, I joined the laboratory, Nakuru Veterinary Laboratory, and I realized they are doing a lot of work, but nobody knows. So farmers don't take advantage of the laboratory because they don't know what they are doing. So I wrote to KTN farmers, and I asked them whether they can do a documentary on the laboratory. And they came and they did 14 clips. And it was free of charge. We didn't pay anything as the laboratory. And now I also realized that I have a lot of things I can write. I wrote to the editor, Seas of Gold, and asked whether I can be putting articles there. I was told, give me a sample, and then we can decide. I sent 2. They were both published, and I was invited for a contract with Seas of Gold to be submitting articles. And you might wonder, where do these stories come from? From just what is happening around you. For example, if you check the last 4 or 5 articles I have written, is on COVID. how do farmers cope with the shortage of workers? How can you engage your children on the farm now that the COVID holiday is so long? How are farmers coping with COVID? What lessons have we learned? Is there any positive thing we can learn from COVID? And so on and so forth. So all you need is passion, look around you, and there's a story to tell. So I don't want it to take a lot of time. Maybe next time you'll give me an opportunity to give my experience. I want to thank all of you, the presenters, the organizers, and participants. And with that, I will declare the presentations closed, or I give my closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ari, and thanks for sharing your experience. Clearly, you have a lot to give us, so next time we'll consider that. So, my dear participants, we leave it here. I must thank you. It's PCN on behalf of Leah, who has been organizing this, and the entire PCN Animal People family. We thank you. Thank you for accepting us to come into your rooms and to come into your life and to your career. Thank you for the embrace. We really, really appreciate the warmth that you have given us, and we will continue sharing. For now, we leave the WhatsApp group open because there are lots of conversations going in there. If you want to continue with your course partner, I'm sure most of us have found friendship with a course partner and perhaps areas of coherence. You can continue with that. Maybe there'll be your accountability partners as you design your journey from here. Because the question is, so what, where do we go from here? So where you go from here, it's upon you. So with those few remarks, I want to thank you, each one of us. Until we meet next time, please enjoy your life and enjoy yourself. See you next time. Bye-bye.